This whole proceeding is a mockery of justice. I demand the truth be heard.
Sit down right now, or I will hold you in contempt.
The atmosphere in the Providence Municipal Court is heavy with the usual tension of a Tuesday morning. The benches are filled with people from all walks of life: anxious teenagers caught speeding, frustrated delivery drivers with double parking tickets, and weary citizens hoping for a reduction in their fines. The air conditioners hum against the humidity, but the real heat comes from the anxiety radiating from the gallery. At the center of it all sits Judge Frank Caprio, a man known not just for his gavel, but for his ability to see the human soul behind a citation number. He adjusts his glasses, looking down at the stack of files before him. To a bureaucratic system, these are just violations, revenue, and case numbers. But to Frank Caprio, each file is a story waiting to be heard. "Victor Cuellar," the bailiff calls out. The name hangs in the air for a moment. From the back of the room there is movement, but it is slow, painfully slow. A hush falls over the courtroom as the other defendants turn to watch. Slowly, a man rises from the wooden bench. He is small, frail, and his movements are deliberate, each step calculated to maintain balance against the pull of gravity and time. He grips a walking cane tightly, his knuckles white against the dark wood. He is dressed in a button-down shirt that seems slightly too big for his shrinking frame, a testament to the years that have whittled him down. It takes nearly a full minute for him to reach the defendant's podium. The silence in the room isn't impatient, it's respectful, tinged with a collective curiosity. This man looks nothing like the reckless drivers who usually stand in that spot. His gray hair is thinned by age, his face mapped with the deep lines of nearly a century of life. He places his trembling hands on the podium, looking up at the judge, not with defiance, but with a palpable sense of fear and respect. He looks like a man who has spent his entire life following the rules, and now in his twilight years finds himself on the wrong side of the law. Judge Caprio looks down at the file, then up at the man, his expression shifting from judicial scrutiny to gentle observation. He sees the cane, he sees the trembling hands, he sees the hearing aid tucked behind an ear. "Good morning," Judge Caprio says, his voice projecting warmth rather than authority. "Good morning, Judge," the old man replies. His voice is raspy, weak, barely carrying to the microphone. The bailiff has to adjust it downwards, angling it toward the man's face. "State your name for the record, please," the judge asks softly. "Victor Cuellar," he answers. Judge Caprio looks back at the paperwork. "Mr. Cuellar, you are charged with a speeding violation. The officer's report states you were driving through a school zone. You were clocked doing over the limit in an area where children were present." The courtroom murmurs quietly. Speeding in a school zone is a serious offense. It implies recklessness. It implies a danger to society. But looking at Victor Cuellar, the image doesn't fit the crime. This is a man who looks like he struggles to walk at a normal pace, let alone drive a vehicle at high speeds. The cognitive dissonance is striking. "I understand the charge, Your Honor," Victor says, his eyes downcast. I don't drive fast, Judge. I'm 96 years old. I drive slowly. I only drive when I have to." 96? Judge Caprio repeats, leaning back in his chair. A ripple of surprise goes through the gallery. "You are 96 years old and you are still driving?" "Yes, sir. Only when I must." Judge Caprio takes off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He has seen thousands of cases. He knows that elderly drivers can sometimes be at risk, their reflexes slowed by time. The law is black and white regarding safety, but Frank Caprio operates in the gray areas of human existence. He looks at Victor, really looks at him. He doesn't see a criminal. He sees a grandfather, a father, a man who has lived through wars, depressions, and the turning of the millennium. Mr. Quayella, the judge leans forward, you are charged with speeding in a school zone. That is a strict liability offense. The safety of children is paramount. But looking at you, I have to ask, why were you driving that day? Where were you going in such a hurry that you failed to observe the speed limit? Victor looks up, his eyes watery. His hands shake harder on the podium. He takes a deep breath, as if the weight of the world is resting on his frail shoulders. He isn't worried about the money. He isn't worried about the points on his license. He is worried about something else entirely, something that drove a 96-year-old man to push his foot down on the gas pedal despite his failing reflexes. Judge, Victor starts, his voice cracking with emotion. I wasn't driving for me. I don't go anywhere for me anymore. I was taking my son. Judge Caprio pauses. You were taking your son? How old is your son? He is 63, Your Honor. The judge blinks, processing the math. A 96-year-old father driving his 63-year-old son. And where were you taking him, Mr. Quayella? Victor swallows hard, the emotion rising in his throat. I was taking him to the doctor, Judge. He is very sick. The silence in the courtroom deepens, becoming almost physical in its weight. The ambient noise of shuffling papers and whispering gallery members evaporates instantly. All eyes are fixed on the small, trembling man at the podium. He is very sick, Victor repeats, his voice barely carrying, yet it echoes with the thunderous volume of a father's love. Judge Caprio leans further over the bench, his demeanor softening completely. The judicial mask falls away, replaced by the look of a man who understands the complexities of family obligation. What is the matter with your son, Mr. Quayella? He asks gently. Victor adjusts his grip on the cane, stabilizing himself as he prepares to explain a burden he carries daily. He has cancer, Your Honor, Victor says, looking directly into the judge's eyes. He is handicapped. He cannot drive himself. There is no one else. I take him for his blood work every 2 weeks so the doctors can monitor his condition. A collective gasp seems to suspend the air in the room. The image is stark and heartbreaking. A 96-year-old man who should be resting in the comfort of his golden years, who should be the one receiving care, is instead acting as the primary caregiver for his 63-year-old son. The roles of protector and dependent have refused to reverse, defied by necessity and love. Judge Caprio pauses, letting the gravity of the statement settle over the court. He looks at Victor, not seeing a traffic violator, but a pillar of strength disguised in a fragile frame. You take him for his blood work every 2 weeks, the judge clarifies, ensuring the record in the room understands the consistency of this sacrifice. Yes, sir, and for his treatments, Victor nods. I drive him. I help him get in the car. I wait for him, and then I drive him home. I was trying to get him there on time, Judge. That is why I might have been going too fast. I wasn't watching the speedometer. I was watching the clock for my boy. For your boy? Judge Caprio repeats, softly. To a father, a 63-year-old man is still his boy. The judge smiles, a sad but admiring smile that reaches his eyes. Mr. Quayella, you are 96 years old. Most people your age are being driven by their children. Most people your age are resting. But you are still the protector. Victor shrugged slightly, a humble gesture that dismisses the heroism others see. I am his father, Judge. As long as I am breathing, I am his father. Who else will do it? He needs me.
The simplicity of the statement pierces the heart of everyone present. In a world often defined by selfishness and speed, here stands a man defined by slow, unwavering devotion. The prosecutor looks down at his desk, unable to meet the old man's gaze. The bailiff wipes a hand across his face. Judge Caprio turns his attention to the camera, addressing not just the courtroom, but the world outside that often forgets its elders. "Listen to this man," the judge says, gesturing toward Victor. "We have a gentleman here, 96 years old, who is still looking out for his family. He is not asking for help. He is not complaining about his burden. He is standing here apologizing for driving too fast because he was trying to save his son." The judge turns back to Victor. "You are a good man, Mr. Coella. You are a very good man. You really are what America is all about. You are the embodiment of that spirit that says we look after our own, no matter the cost, no matter the age." Victor looks down at his hands, embarrassed by the praise. He didn't come here for accolades. He came here to pay a fine so he could get back to his car, back to his son. "I just try to do what's right, Your Honor," he murmurs. "And you are doing what's right," Judge Caprio affirms. He looks at the citation again, the piece of paper that started this entire interaction. It demands a penalty. It demands justice in the form of currency. But Frank Caprio knows that sometimes the strict letter of the law violates the spirit of justice. He looks at the fine amount, then back at Victor. But then a thought crosses the judge's mind. He realizes that this isn't just about a speeding ticket anymore. It's about witnessing something rare. "Mr. Coella," the judge asks, a glint of warmth in his eye, "is your son with you today?" Victor nods toward the back of the courtroom. "Yes, Your Honor. He is waiting in the car. I didn't want him to have to walk all this way." "He is waiting in the car," Judge Caprio repeats, the realization settling in. He looks out toward the windows of the courtroom, as if he could see through the brick walls to a Honda sedan parked outside, where a 63-year-old man sits, waiting for his 96-year-old father to return. The imagery strikes a chord that resonates with everyone in the room. In a society that often warehouses its elderly or overlooks the disabled, here is a two-man unit functioning on pure loyalty. "You didn't want him to walk," the judge says, stating it as a fact rather than a question. "No, sir," Victor replies softly. "It is hard for him. The cancer, it takes his strength. I told him, 'You stay here. Pop will handle this.' I didn't want him to worry. He worries about me too much already." "Pop will handle this," Judge Caprio echoes. He takes off his glasses again, a signature move that signals he is speaking from the heart, not the bench. He looks at the young law students sitting in the jury box, observing the proceedings as part of their education. "Do you see this?" the judge asks, gesturing toward Victor. "I want you all to look at this man. We learn laws in school. We learn statutes. We learn about mens rea and actus reus. But you cannot learn what this man has in a classroom. You cannot teach this kind of character." The courtroom is dead silent. Even the court clerk has stopped typing. "Mr. Coella," the judge continues, his voice thick with emotion, "you are 96. You should be relaxing. You should be sitting on a porch somewhere, enjoying the fruits of a long life. Instead, you are fighting traffic, navigating school zones, and dealing with the stress of medical appointments. Does anyone help you? Do you have other family?" Victor shakes his head slowly. "It's just us, Judge. My wife passed on some years ago. It's just me and my boy. We look out for each other. He would do the same for me if he could." "I have no doubt he would," Judge Caprio says. "But the reality is, you are the one doing it. You are the one carrying the weight." The judge looks back at the police report, specifically at the speed recorded. It wasn't a joyride. It wasn't reckless abandon. It was a man rushing against time, not to beat a traffic light, but to beat a disease that is threatening to take the only family he has left. "You know, Mr. Coella," the judge says, leaning forward, his tone shifting to something conversational, almost fatherly, despite Victor being his senior. "I have a son. He is grown now, and I often think about the bond between a father and a son. It changes as we get older. Usually the son takes care of the father. It is the natural order of things. But you are defying nature. You are defying the odds." Victor smiles weakly, a flicker of pride breaking through his anxiety. "I don't know about defying nature, Judge. I just know he's my son. When he was born, I held him and promised I'd take care of him. That promise doesn't have an expiration date." "That promise doesn't have an expiration date," the judge repeats, clearly moved. He writes something down on his notepad, underlining it twice. "That is powerful, Mr. Coella. Very powerful." Judge Caprio turns to the state prosecutor, Inspector Quinn, who is usually the one to argue for the fines, to uphold the letter of the law. But today, his posture is relaxed, his face softened. "Inspector Quinn," the judge asks, "you have heard Mr. Coella's story. You see a man of 96 years driving his handicapped son to cancer treatments. What is the state's position on this?" Inspector Quinn doesn't hesitate. He looks at Victor with genuine admiration. "Your Honor, I have a father who is getting up there in age. If he was doing this for me, I can only hope I would be worth that kind of effort. The state has no desire to prosecute a man for being a good father." "I didn't think so," Judge Caprio nods. He turns back to Victor. The legal part of this interaction is rapidly dissolving, replaced by a human connection that is rare in a municipal court. But the judge isn't ready to let Victor go just yet.
He wants to give this man something more than just a verdict. He wants to give him a moment of recognition. "Mr. Coella, before I make my ruling, I have to ask you something personal," the judge says, his eyes twinkling with a mix of curiosity and respect. You are sharp. You are standing here on your own 2 feet. You are driving. What is your secret? What do you eat? How do you stay so strong?" Victor chuckles softly at the judge's question, the sound raspy but genuine. It breaks the heavy tension in the room, if only for a moment. He leans into the microphone, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "There is no secret, Judge," Victor says, a small smile playing on his lips. I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I love my family. I think keeping busy keeps you alive. If I stop, I might not start again." Laughter ripples through the gallery. It is a warm, relieved sound. "You love your family," Judge Caprio nods, looking deeply impressed. "And you keep moving. That is a lesson for all of us. You know, Mr. Coella, we see a lot of people in this courtroom. We see people who are angry, people who make excuses, people who try to blame everyone else for their mistakes. But you stand here at 96 years old, taking full responsibility, motivated only by love for your son." The judge picks up the citation file one last time. He holds it up, displaying the paperwork that demands $50 plus court costs. To the state, it is a debt. To Frank Caprio, it is an opportunity to correct an imbalance in the universe. "Mr. Coella," the judge says, his voice dropping to a serious, hushed tone, "you are a good man. You are setting an example not just for your son, but for everyone in this room, for everyone watching. You represent the very best of human nature. A father's love never stops. It doesn't stop at 80. It doesn't stop at 90. And clearly, it doesn't stop at 96. Victor lowers his head, overwhelmed by the kindness. He is used to struggle, not praise. "I am going to dismiss this case," Judge Caprio declares firmly. The sound of the gavel hitting the block is soft, almost ceremonial. "You are not going to pay a single penny. I want you to take that money, and I want you to buy your son something nice. Or maybe buy yourself a good lunch. You deserve it." Victor looks up, shock registering on his face. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much." "No, thank you," the judge counters. "Thank you for showing us what it means to be a parent. Now, I want you to do me a favor. When you go back to that car, I want you to tell your son something from me." Victor nods eagerly. "Yes, Judge. What should I tell him?" "I want you to tell him that he has a good father," Judge Caprio says, his voice wavering slightly with emotion. "Tell him that the city of Providence appreciates what you're doing. And, tell him I said a prayer for him, for his health." Victor's eyes fill with tears. He reaches for a handkerchief in his pocket, dabbing at his face. "I will, Judge. I will tell him. He will be so happy. He was worried about the money. We're on a fixed income, you know. This helps a lot." "It's the least we can do," Judge Caprio says. "Good luck to you, Mr. Coelho, and God bless you. Drive safely, please, for your son's sake." "I will. I promise," Victor says. He turns from the podium, his steps seemingly lighter than when he arrived. As he begins the slow walk back to the aisle, the courtroom spontaneously erupts into applause. It isn't polite, perfunctory applause. It is loud, sustained, and heartfelt. People are standing up. The young law students are clapping. The bailiffs are smiling. Judge Caprio watches him go, a contemplative look on his face. He doesn't call the next case immediately. He lets the moment linger. He turns to the camera, breaking the fourth wall as he often does when a case touches his soul. "You see that?" the judge asks, pointing toward the retreating figure of the 96-year-old father. "That is what it's all about. That man is a hero, a quiet hero. He's not looking for a medal. He's just looking to get his boy to the doctor." The judge takes a sip of water, composing himself. But the story isn't quite over. As Victor reaches the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom, he stops. He turns back toward the bench, raising his cane in a salute of gratitude. The judge nods back, but unknown to Victor, his story has already begun to ripple outward. In the gallery, a woman is wiping her eyes, reaching for her purse. She whispers something to the person next to her. A movement begins in the back row. "Wait!" A voice calls out from the gallery. "Excuse me, Your Honor." Judge Caprio looks up, surprised. "Yes, what is it?" A middle-aged woman stands up, her face streaked with tears. She is clutching a $20 bill in her hand. "Judge, can I give him this? For his gas? For his son?" The courtroom freezes. It is highly irregular for a spectator to interrupt a judicial proceeding, let alone to offer money to a defendant. In most courts, the bailiff would step in, order would be demanded, and the gesture would be shut down by the cold mechanics of protocol. But this is not most courts. This is Frank Caprio's courtroom, where the heart often holds more sway than the gavel. Judge Caprio looks at the woman standing in the aisle. She is trembling slightly, holding the cash out with a desperate sincerity. He looks at the bailiff, signaling him to stand down. "Come forward, ma'am," the judge says gently. "Come up to the bench." The woman moves past the wooden railing, approaching Victor, who is still standing near the exit. Confused by the sudden commotion, she looks at the 96-year-old man and then at the judge. "Your Honor," she says, her voice shaking, "my father, he passed away last year. He was stubborn like this. He wanted to do everything himself. Watching Mr. Coelho, it just broke my heart. I know how hard gas is. Please let me give it to him for his son." She turns to Victor, extending the $20 bill. "Please, sir, take it. Buy your son lunch." Victor looks at the money, then at the woman, and finally at the judge, seeking permission. His pride is strong, but his gratitude is stronger. "It's okay, Mr. Coelho," Judge Caprio nods, his voice thick. "She wants to bless you. Let her bless you." Victor takes the money with a shaking hand. He grips the woman's hand in his own, bowing his head. "Thank you, miss. You are an angel. You are an angel." "No," she whispers, hugging the frail man carefully. "You are the angel. You take care of that boy." But the moment doesn't end there. As the woman steps back, another movement catches the judge's eye. A man in a work uniform, sitting 3 rows back, stands up. He digs into his wallet.
then a young student in the back, then an elderly woman near the front. It's a chain reaction, a domino effect of compassion sparked by one man's quiet dignity. "Your Honor," the man in the uniform calls out, "I want to pitch in too. My brother is handicapped. I know the struggle." Judge Caprio watches in awe as people begin to leave their seats. It is a breach of every courtroom protocol in the book, yet it is the most just moment the room has ever seen. Strangers are approaching Victor Coella, pressing $5 bills, $10 bills, whatever they have, into his hands. They are patting him on the back. They are shaking his hand. "This is unbelievable," Judge Caprio says, speaking into his microphone, but addressing the soul of the city. "Look at this. Just look at this. We hear so much bad news. We hear about crime, about division, about how the world is falling apart. But look right here. Total strangers helping a man they met 5 minutes ago." Victor is overwhelmed. He holds the small bundle of cash against his chest, tears streaming freely down his face. Now he looks up at the judge, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Judge, I don't know what to say. I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to ask, Mr. Coella," the judge replies, smiling through his own misted eyes. "Your life asked for it. Your example asked for it."
Goodness attracts goodness. You put love into the world for 96 years, and today the world is giving a little bit of it back. The bailiff, a large man who has seen everything from assaults to thefts, is openly wiping his eyes. He steps forward not to stop the crowd, but to help Victor manage the donations, ensuring the old man isn't overwhelmed physically. "Mr. Coella," the bailiff says softly, "let me help you put that in your pocket, sir. Don't lose it." "Thank you. Thank you, everyone," Victor stammers, turning in a slow circle to address the gallery. "My son, he won't believe this. He really won't believe this." Judge Caprio leans back, letting the scene unfold. He knows his docket is behind schedule. He knows there are other cases waiting. But he also knows that this moment is more important than any schedule. This is healing. "Wait a minute," the judge says suddenly, a new thought occurring to him. He remembers Victor saying his son was in the car. "Mr. Coella, you said your son is outside right now, in the car?" "Yes, Judge, right out front." Judge Caprio looks at the camera crew filming for the show. He looks at his bailiff. A spark of determination lights up his face. He doesn't just want to send Victor out with money. He wants to complete the circle. "Is he parked legally?" the judge jokes, lightening the mood, before turning serious. "I want to meet him. Inspector Quinn, bailiff, what do you say we take a recess?" The room goes quiet, confused but excited. "A recess, Judge?" Quinn asks, smiling because he knows exactly where this is going. "Yes." Judge Caprio stands up, his black robe swishing around him. "I want to go outside. I want to meet the man who inspires such devotion. Mr. Coella, take me to your son." The procession that exits the Providence Municipal Court is unlike anything the security guards have ever seen. Usually, people leave the courthouse in a hurry, heads down, clutching receipts for their fines. But today, the heavy glass doors swing open to reveal Judge Frank Caprio, still in his flowing black robes, stepping out into the bright midday sun. Beside him walks 96-year-old Victor Coella, moving with a new energy, his cane tapping rhythmically on the pavement. Behind them, Inspector Quinn and the bailiff follow, caught up in the magnetic pull of the moment. Passers-by stop and stare. It's a rare sight to see the chief judge on the sidewalk, but Caprio has eyes only for the old Buick parked near the curb. It is a car that has seen better days, much like its owner. The paint is faded, a testament to decades of New England winters, but it is clean. As they approach the vehicle, Victor waves his hand. "He's in there, Judge. That's my boy." In the passenger seat sits a man in his 60s. He looks frail,
his face pale from the treatments, his head resting against the headrest with eyes closed. At the sound of voices, he opens his eyes, blinking in confusion as he sees the imposing figure of a judge approaching his window. He looks at his father, then at the judge, panic flickering in his eyes. He thinks something is wrong. He thinks his father is in trouble. Judge Caprio signals for Victor to open the door. Victor leans in, his voice gentle. "It's okay, son. It's okay. The judge, he wants to say hello." The son, whose name is Bob, looks bewildered. "The judge? Hello, Bob," Judge Caprio says, leaning down so his face is level with the open door. His voice sheds all traces of courtroom formality. It is just one man speaking to another. "I just met your father inside." Bob tries to sit up straighter, respectful of the robe. Did he get a ticket, Your Honor? I told him to be careful. I'm sorry." No, don't be sorry," Caprio smiles, waving a hand dismissively. "There is no ticket. Not anymore. I dismissed it." Relief washes over Bob's face, physically relaxing his tense shoulders. "Oh, thank God. Thank you. We don't have much." "I know," the judge says softly. He reaches out, resting a hand on the roof of the car, bridging the gap between the law and the citizen. "But I came out here to tell you something else. I wanted to tell you what I told everyone in that courtroom." Bob looks at his father, then back at Caprio. "Sir, you have a magnificent father," Judge Caprio says, his voice thick with sincerity. "I have seen many things in my life. I have seen the best and the worst of people. But what your father is doing for you, that is the definition of love. He is 96 years old, and he is fighting for you every single day." Bob looks at Victor. The old man is standing on the sidewalk, leaning on his cane, looking down at his son with a gaze full of protective tenderness. Tears well up in Bob's eyes. It is a look of mutual understanding, of a lifetime of shared struggles and quiet victories. "I know, Judge," Bob whispers, his voice cracking. "He's my hero. He's been my hero my whole life. I don't know what I'd do without him." "You are a lucky man," Caprio affirms, "and he is lucky to have a son who appreciates him. The city of Providence is proud of both of you." The judge reaches into his robe. He doesn't want to make a show of it, but he slips a few more bills that he had personally gathered from his own pocket into Victor's hand. "Get him a good lunch, Victor, on me." Victor tries to protest, but the judge stops him with a look. "Please, it would make me happy." "Thank you, Judge. Thank you," Bob says, wiping his eyes. "You don't know what this means to us. Not just the money, but nobody usually notices us." "We notice," Caprio says firmly. "We notice." The judge stands up, smoothing his robes. The street traffic is buzzing by. Life is continuing its frantic pace, but in this small bubble on the sidewalk, time seems to have stopped. It is a tableau of compassion. The powerful judge, the devoted father, and the grateful son. "Victor," the judge says, offering a handshake, "you drive carefully now. No more speeding. We want you around for a long time." "I promise, Judge. Slow and steady," Victor beams, gripping the judge's hand with surprising strength. As Judge Caprio turns back to head back into the courthouse, he pauses. He looks back at the car one last time. Victor is buckled into the driver's seat now, leaning over to adjust his son's collar, checking if he's comfortable. The simple, mundane act of caretaking strikes the judge harder than any grand speech. He walks back toward the glass doors, silence trailing in his wake. Inspector Quinn walks beside him. "That was something special, Frank," Quinn says quietly, dropping the formal title. "Yes," Caprio replies, his voice distant. "Yes, it was." Back inside the courthouse, the air feels different. The gallery is still buzzing from the earlier interaction. As the judge takes the bench again, he looks out at the sea of faces. The next case is called, another parking ticket, another speeding violation, but the energy has shifted. The cynicism that usually permeates a municipal court has been replaced by a lingering sense of hope. Judge Caprio picks up his gavel, but before he strikes it to call the next session to order, he looks at the camera. The murmurs in the courtroom have settled into a contemplative silence. Judge Caprio sits at the bench, his hands clasped in front of him. He isn't looking at his docket anymore. He is looking directly into the lens of the camera that broadcasts these proceedings to millions of people around the world. The interactions of the last hour weigh on him, not as a burden, but as a gift. "You know," the judge begins, his voice soft but commanding the full attention of the room, "we sit here every day. We hear hundreds of excuses. We hear people fighting over $10, over parking spots, over things that in the grand scheme of life just don't matter. It is easy to get cynical in this job. It is easy to think that everyone is just looking out for themselves." He pauses, looking toward the empty spot where Victor Coella had stood just minutes before. The physical space is empty, but the emotional imprint of the 96-year-old father remains palpable. But then, the judge continues, a smile touching his lips. Then a man like Victor walks in. 96 years old. Think about that number. 96. Most people at that age are asking, what can the world do for me? But Victor, he is asking, what can I do for my son? The camera zooms in slightly, capturing the emotion in the judge's eyes. We talk a lot about family values in this country. We talk about duty. We talk about love. Politicians give speeches about it. But today, we didn't hear a speech. We saw it in action. We saw a man who is living it. He wasn't driving fast because he was reckless. He was driving fast because his love for his child is more powerful than his fear of a speeding ticket. It is more powerful than his own age. It is more powerful than his own physical limitations. The judge leans back, addressing the gallery directly now. That young woman who stood up and gave her money, that gentleman in the back, that is the America I know. That is the humanity I believe in. When we see goodness, we respond to it. We want to be part of it. Victor didn't just save his son today. I think, in a way, he saved us. He reminded us of what is actually important. Judge Caprio picks up his gavel, turning it over in his hands. It is usually a symbol of punishment, of finality. Today, it feels different. "I hope that when you all go home today," he says, his voice thick with feeling, "you think about Victor. If you have parents, call them. If you have children, hug them a little tighter. Because that bond, that is the only thing that really lasts. Statutes change, laws change, fines get paid. But that love, that doesn't have an expiration date." He looks at Inspector Quinn, who is still standing by the prosecutor's desk, looking unusually thoughtful. "Inspector, I think we can all agree that justice was served today, not by the letter of the law, but by the spirit of it." "Absolutely, Your Honor," Quinn agrees quietly. "Best case of the year." "The best case of the year," Caprio repeats. "Maybe the best case of my career." He looks at the camera one last time, delivering his final message to the millions watching on screens around the globe. "We are here to help people. That is the job of this court. Not to crush them when they're down, but to lift them up when they're trying to do the right thing. To Victor and his son, Bob, wherever you're driving right now, Godspeed. And to everyone else, be like Victor." The judge takes a deep breath, the emotional weight of the morning finally settling into a sense of peace. He looks down at his papers, ready to return to the mundane, but changed by the extraordinary. "Madam Clerk, Judge Caprio says, his voice returning to his professional cadence, though the warmth remains. "Call the next case." The gavel strikes the sound block. Bang. It isn't a sound of judgment. It sounds like an amen. The screen fades to black, leaving only the echo of the judge's words and the memory of a father's love. The screen fades back in from black. The music shifts from the somber, emotional piano of the courtroom to a more uplifting, hopeful melody. We see a montage of slow-motion shots, Judge Caprio shaking hands with people on the street, Victor Coella smiling at his son, and the bustling streets of Providence, Rhode Island. The story of Victor Coella didn't end when he drove away from the courthouse that day. The narrator's voice begins, warm and resonant. In fact, that was just the beginning. When this story first aired, it didn't just stay in Providence. It traveled across oceans. It touched hearts in London, in Tokyo, in Sydney, and in small towns across America. The visual shift to a photo of Victor and Bob, looking happier, perhaps sitting at a dinner table with a modest meal. "We received thousands of messages," the voice continues, people asking how they could help, people sharing their own stories of caring for sick relatives, people who said that watching a 96-year-old man fight for his son gave them the strength to keep fighting for their own families. Victor taught us that age is just a number, but love is the fuel that keeps us going. Judge Caprio appears on screen again, sitting in his chambers, no longer wearing the robe, looking like a wise grandfather speaking to his family. "You know," Caprio says, leaning forward, "people often ask me why Caught in Providence is so popular. They ask why millions of people watch parking ticket hearings. It's not about the tickets. It never was. It's about the connection. It's about realizing that we are all in this together." Victor Coella reminded us that we are our brother's keeper, or in his case, his son's keeper. The judge smiles, a genuine expression of gratitude. "If this story touched your heart," he continues, "I have a small request. Don't just watch it, live it. Look around your own neighborhood. Is there an elderly neighbor who needs help with their groceries? Is there a single mom struggling to get her kids to school? Be the person who steps up. Be the person who offers a hand, not judgment." Text appears on the screen. Be the change. And if you believe in a world where compassion is more important than punishment, Caprio adds, please consider joining our community here. Subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs a little hope today. Because the more we share these stories, the more we remind the world that kindness is still alive and well. The camera cuts back to that final iconic shot of Victor Coella outside the courthouse, carefully adjusting his son's seatbelt before getting into the driver's seat. It is the ultimate image of service. Victor Coella is still driving, the narrator concludes. He is still taking care of his boy, and as long as he's behind the wheel, we know the world is in good hands. The screen fades to black, followed by the final end cards. In a world of rules, be the exception. Be kind.